Hello, I'm Martine, the artist behind Martine's Fine Art. In this video I'll show you how I created a real giant in colored pencils. First of all, I created a line drawing on a cheap piece of paper and transferred this line drawing to the sanded paper. In this case I used my favorite brand, the Fisher400 again. I like the Fisher400 even more than the UArt because you can't see the structure of the paper in your finished piece. I know UArt should give these same results, but sometimes they have certain areas on the paper that show the structure or grid. In the first layer I always use the less waxier pencils, like Polychromos and Derwent Pro Color, because they blend very easy with or even without the powder blender. I like to blend with the Pan Pastel tool because it has a longer handle than the little sponges that come with the brush and pencil kit itself. In this first layer, I first block in where the whites and pinks are, blend this carefully, and then in the second layer I'll put as much detail in as I can. But I know when I can't get more details in, I can fixate these first two layers with the textured fixative and rework this area in a third layer. In fact, you can layer as much as you want with the textured fixative, because it isolates previous layers and restores the tooth. But I always want to spray the whole drawing at once, so I work on an area, move to the next till I complete the whole first layers of the drawing, and then I spray the whole piece at once. This saves time and fixative, I think. I really enjoy working with this system. It gives me so much freedom because you can experiment and erase when you don't like it. And it's much faster than working on hot press watercolor paper. For example, I had to complete this one in 2 weeks because of an exhibition. Drawing this one, for example on hot press, Stonehenge or Bristol, this would be an insane job in those 2 weeks. But now I had the opportunity to create this real giant in about 10 days. Well, and of course that's still a lot of hours, but much better than a couple of months, I think. And the other cool thing is a way of coloring. When you draw on a smooth surface like Stonehenge, you have to make small, precise movements with your colored pencil to get even coverage. That's a thing you'll have to do with a lot of concentration. But coloring on sanded paper is much more looser, I think, because of the possibility of really easy blending. As you can see, I can hold the pencils much further from the point and move it in a loose way. And I think this is a relaxed way of coloring. As you know, I also love to work on drafting film, but that's completely different. And that's much more precise. I always sit while working on drafting film. But on sanded paper I can sit, but I also can stand for a while coloring. And I like to alternate between those surfaces. For some subjects, drafting film is a real no-go. Like subjects, for example, with a large, deep black background. And for large pieces I prefer the sanded paper anyway. But they definitely differ in appearance. So sometimes I choose drafting film and sometimes I choose sanded paper. It's weird, but since I tried those two surfaces, I almost never use Stonehenge or Fabriano Artistico anymore. So I completed these first layers on the piece and then sprayed it with textured fixative. There are 3 very important things to think of. First, shake the fixative for a while. I always shake it for about 1 minute, I think. Second, clean the nozzle before spraying. You can take it from the bottle and soak it in a small cup filled with warm water and dry it with a tissue or something. And the third thing you'll have to keep in mind is to push the nozzle far enough, because when you're kind of afraid to spray and don't push it down completely but just halfway, it tends to spit. And, well, even that's not a real problem because the droplets will disappear while you're coloring over them in the next layer. I sprayed it a couple of times and let that dry overnight. And then I reworked the whole drawing again. To get the real whites, I've used white charcoal and that worked really well. It's a white charcoal pencil from Koh-i-Noor. I also used the Pablos and a few luminants in these layers. The Pablos work very well for the details because they hold their point really well. But for this drawing it was more a matter of color. I searched for all the light fast pinks and purples and used almost all of them. In this layer I put in more and more detail, glaze colors on top of the first layers and increase the contrast. I darken the darks and bring in the real highlights. I clean up edges, rework shadows, deepen the colors and so on. Well, I think that's it. Hope you liked it. Maybe you can give a comment or a like when you enjoyed it. But the best thing is to experiment yourself. And if you have questions, just post them below. I always try to answer them. So, pick up your own pencils and color the world. Have a nice day.